My name is Wright. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel, and I'm a former U.S. diplomat. I resigned from the U.S. government in 2003 in opposition to the war in Iraq. Having been in the U.S. government for so many years, so many decades, and the U.S. government being a part of the wars that we've had around the world that have caused so much humanitarian disasters. Now that I'm no longer a part of the U.S. government, I've been working very hard on trying to eliminate, ameliorate some of the conditions that have been caused by, particularly by wars. So I'm here to talk about one thing in particular, and that concerns a place called Gaza, a place that's in the Middle East, a place that Palestinians live, a place that is only 25 miles long, 5 miles wide, and has now over 2 million people in it. It's one of the most populated areas in the world. And yet it is a place where the Israeli government continues to attack and kill and injure hundreds and thousands, now tens of thousands of people. After I resigned from the U.S. government, Palestine became one of the interests that I had. I mentioned it in the letter of resignation that I sent to the U.S. government in 2003 when I resigned. I mentioned that the unbalanced policies of the United States government that permitted, really, gave approval to the Israeli government for whatever they wanted to do in both Gaza and the West Bank. What they wanted to do to the people of Palestine, essentially to run them off. It was in 2009 when the Israeli attack on Gaza, the 27-day attack that killed 1,400 people, wounded 5,000, and left 50,000 homeless, that I became very engaged on the Palestinian issues. I went to Palestine. I went to Gaza. And came back committed to help in any way that I could to bring attention to what was happening in Gaza, what the Israeli government was doing to the Palestinians in Gaza. I worked with a group called Code Pink Women for Peace, and in the year 2009 we had 6 groups that we organized primarily from the United States but also from other countries to go to Gaza to see what had happened, to see the humanitarian disaster that was occurring because of the Israeli attack on the people of Gaza. In 2010, I participated in the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, 6 ships that sailed to break the Israeli blockade, the naval blockade of Gaza, because Israel was surrounding Gaza both by land and by sea. And we were making an attempt to challenge that naval blockade, to say to the Israeli government and to my government of the United States that these blockades are inhumane, they're illegal, and they must end. So there were 6 ships that in 2010 made the crossing to 50 miles off the coast of Gaza to bring humanitarian assistance. 2 big cargo ships that had lots of materials on them to include lots of wheelchairs for disabled people in Gaza, and lots of food supplies, medical supplies that were coming. And the Israeli government sent its Navy out to stop us on this mission of humanitarian relief to the people of Gaza. And unfortunately, the Israelis decided to use lethal force. They ended up executing 9 people on the Mavi Marmara. They wounded over 50 people on the Mavi Marmara. They ended up beating up people on each of the other 5 ships that were part of that flotilla. They took control of the ships. They took the ships to Israel. They imprisoned all of us, nearly 700 people that were on those 6 ships. They imprisoned us, and then ultimately they deported us. A 10-year deportation, which means that you cannot go back into Israel to go to the West Bank for 10 years. because of those deportations. The Israeli government rightfully came in for a huge amount of international criticism for their execution of 9 people that were on board the Mavi Marmara and the wounding of 50. We that were a part of that mission said we will not stop. We will not stop until the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza are free, and we will continue to send ships to break the naval blockade. And that next year, in 2011, we had 10 ships that were purchased by campaigns from all over the world. We had 15 different campaigns from 15 different nations or international organizations that had raised money from citizens from all over the world to send more ships to challenge the Israeli blockade of Gaza. Unfortunately, the Israelis paid off the government of Greece to not let those boats go. And even though we attempted to sail from Greece, we were stopped by the Greek Coast Guard, which fortunately did not use lethal force against any of us. They didn't kill any of us. But still they prevented this humanitarian movement from departing. In 2012, in order to bring more attention to the plight of people of Gaza, we initiated a program called Gaza's Ark. We decided to have a program inside Gaza where we worked with Gaza fishermen, with Gaza construction people and boat people to renovate a boat, to renovate a sailboat, sailing ship, to be a cargo ship that would carry goods outside from Gaza, bringing them from Gaza to the world, that we were sailing to break the blockade from the inside out. For a year and a half, the international community contributed funds so that we could renovate this fishing trawler that was to become a cargo ship. In 2014, in May of 2014, all of a sudden there was an explosion on Gaza's Ark, and that the stern of the ship fell into the water. Someone had purposely put an explosion on that boat to destroy it. We renovated the stern of the boat again, and it was ready to sail when in July and August of 2014, the Israeli government had the massive 51-day attack on Gaza. That attack that left tens of thousands of people injured, over 4,000 people that were killed, including hundreds and hundreds of children that were killed by the Israeli attack on Gaza. Our little boat, the little boat called Gaza's Ark, was one of the targets that the Israelis had. They sent a missile into Gaza's Ark and blew it up. You know, that project that we had as an international project was one of the ones that the Israeli government had used. It had publicized more than any other that there was this boat that was being renovated in Gaza and was going to sail out. So people in Israel and people around the world actually knew a lot about that boat, and it was targeted specifically to blow it up. Well, in 2015, we sent 4 boats to challenge the Israeli blockade of Gaza, including the Marianne, which was a Swedish boat that came all the way around Europe and then into the Mediterranean and then headed for Gaza, joined by 3 sailboats that were coming out of Greece. And again, the Israeli government stopped those boats and put people in prison again and then were deported. In 2016, we had a very unique program, and that was called the Women's Boat to Gaza. This time we decided we would just have women on board the boat, women as captains, women as crew, that we would sail a women's boat to be in solidarity with the women of Gaza. You know, it's the women of Gaza that are the ones that are trying to keep that society going as more and more of the social services are imploding because of the blockade, because the Israeli government will not allow medicines to come in. and sufficient food to come in, that there are Israeli decisions that are being made that have put Gaza, the people of Gaza, on a diet where there is not sufficient caloric value in the goods that are coming in, that people can increase their capability, their weights and things like that. And instead, they were losing weight because they didn't have enough calories. So in 2016, in solidarity with the women of Gaza, we decided that we would sail several boats with women. And in fact, we had 2 boats that started out from Barcelona, Spain. And the boats were to go from Spain to Ajaccio, Corsica, France, and then down to Messina, Sicily, Italy, on a voyage that would take 1,700 miles. When we left Barcelona, one of the engines on the boats blew up. And so we only had one boat. And that one boat, called the Zaytuna, named Zaytuna for the incredible crop, the olive crop that is so famous in all of the Middle East, but particularly for Palestine. The olive trees of Palestine have a particular sentimental value, a cultural value, and we had named one of our boats Zaytuna in honor of that. So the Zaytuna was the one boat that continued from Barcelona, Spain, to Ajaccio, Corsica, France, and then down to Messina, Sicily. Each leg of that trip, we had a different group of women passengers that were selected by an international delegation committee, selected from all over the world. It was, we had from Malaysia, we had 2 women that were a part of that, Noor Sham Abu Bakr and Dr. Hassan. They were 2 of the greatest delegates that any country could possibly send. Dr. Hassan was with us on all 3 legs of the mission. She was our medical doctor for the entire three parts of the voyage. We sailed for 1,700 miles. The last part from Messina, Sicily on down to Gaza was 1,000 miles. And then it was 34 miles off the coast of Gaza that we ended up being stopped by the Israeli military. It was very interesting. The Israeli military had learned from their previous stopping of these boats that violence is not needed against the peaceful, nonviolent people who are there on a mission to break that blockade. And instead of sending heavily armed men in combat outfits, they actually sent young women aboard the ship, young women sailors that did not carry visibly any weaponry. So that was a very different type of response we got from the Israeli military. It was one that we did not know what to anticipate. We didn't know whether we would be faced with men with rifles, or if we were going to, what they were going to do. All the 13 women on board the boat, the Zaytuna, the 13 women, a captain that was from Australia, 2 crew members, one from Sweden and one from Norway. We had a Nobel Peace Laureate, Marie Maguire, who was from Northern Ireland. We had 2 parliamentarians, one from Algeria and one from New Zealand, that were on board. We had an Olympic athlete from South Africa, and we had a journalist from Spain. We also had 2 women who were part of Al Jazeera television team. One woman who is Egyptian but lives in London and works for Al Jazeera out of London, and one who is Lebanese who works in Moscow with Al Jazeera. Myself as a citizen of the United States. So 13 women from 13 countries were there to challenge that Israeli blockade of Gaza. A blockade that still is in existence. A blockade that we will continue to sail against until the Israelis stop that horrific blockade of Gaza. So that's one of the very important missions that I have been a part of trying to bring attention to the plight of people in Gaza, a plight of horrific medical and emotional trauma for the people of Gaza. You know, in Gaza, every hour there are assassin drones that are flying over Gaza. It only takes 30 seconds from Israeli airports to send these unmanned aerial vehicles over Gaza, and they continue to look down at the people of Gaza, and at any moment the people of Gaza may suddenly hear zoom, and all of a sudden their home, their building is blown up. It is a problem, a horrific problem that all people of Gaza are continually thinking about. When will that missile come and hit us? So the trauma that young people have, of young children who never know whether their parents are going to be coming home from work, or when they go to school, that indeed there may be a rocket that will hit their school, because the Israelis have hit schools with their rockets, with their firing. So it is of grave importance that we, people of conscience of the world, think about people in Gaza and in the West Bank, that we not forget them, that we use our ability for humanitarian assistance to help them in any way that we can. And I'm very proud to be a part of an international coalition that is working to break the blockade of Gaza, and also of another one of the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions program, where we, as people of the world, refuse to purchase goods coming out of the illegal settlements that Israel has in the West Bank, that we put pressure on corporations that still do business with the Israeli government when all of these human rights violations are going on. So it's with great honor and great pride that I continue my work with humanitarian assistance all over the world, but particularly focused on the people of Gaza. So we hope that you all will join us in our efforts of exposing what's happening and to provide humanitarian assistance and great hope and relief to the Palestinians in both Gaza and the West Bank. Thank you.